doing sit-ups. I've been doing chin-ups. I've been doing pull-ups. I threw up once, but I'm okay now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the YSN, Your Sports Network Power Hour. My name is DJ Yoakley. It's great to be with you here today. We had a great show for you, and then at, about 2:50, we just threw everything right out the window, and we've got breaking news out of Columbus and something that needs to be discussed across all platforms. So the show that we had for you, we'll condense it down to about 15 minutes. And then the rest of the show, we are going to talk about the referendum pieces that the OHSAA talked about today. And it looks like that they, I want to say they approved it, but I'm going to make sure we read the email correctly that I got directly from Tim Street and discuss it with you. One of them is a huge kind of a keynote piece of what Ohio is trying to do to stay ahead with their student athletics with the name, image, and likeness that they're trying to bring in for student athletes, and it looks like it's going to go through. We're going to talk about that. I want to get your thoughts on it. You're going to get my thoughts on it, and trust me, if you're used to listening to the old AM radio and hearing somebody talk about NIL, you're not going to see the same viewpoint. You're not going to see the same viewpoint. There's pros, there's cons, certainly on both sides of it, but we're going to discuss it at length here on the YSN Power Hour. But first, as we do to open our show each and every day, it is time for On This Day in Sports History. On this day in sports history, in 1993, 73,293 people watched the New York Yankees beat the Cleveland Indians. Yes, they were the Indians at the time, in 9-1 fashion in the season opener at Cleveland Stadium. Now, fast forward about a year, and something special happened in Cleveland. To me, one of the best baseball facilities in all of our country, in all of God's creation. Jacobs Field was created. My favorite, I guess second favorite, PNC wasn't built at that point, but Jacobs Field to me was the mecca of baseball from 1994 on. I know that I'm pretty sure 1994 was the year that it opened. I'm almost positive. 93 was still Municipal Stadium, if I'm not mistaken, and 94 was the opener at Jacobs Field. So I huge love for Jacobs Field. Progressive Field now, obviously. It'll always be the Jake to me. I know a lot of people that are like that. And to watch this Guardians team now, wherever you sit on the fence of whether they're the Indians or the Guardians or the Cleveland Baseball Club, it's just nice to know that baseball's back. Baseball's here. The strike is over. Hopefully that never happens again. Yeah, right. But it's one of those things where I'm interested to see how Cleveland fans are kind of building excitement around this Guardians club. Is it a scenario where is there any love lost between the old name and the new, the old regime and the new, or is it something where it doesn't matter as long as they are playing in Cleveland, as long as they represent Cleveland and C-Town, that is your team, tried and true. I'm very interested to see I'm actually excited, not necessarily about the name change, but I'm excited overall about this young Cleveland team. Almost mirrors, unfortunately for you Cleveland fan, it almost mirrors the Pirates and what they're doing right now in Pittsburgh. But I think there's some great young talent coming up through the ranks in Cleveland. We saw what happened in 1995, in 1997 with some of those young guns. Being able to extend Clause A, I think, is a huge, huge plus for the Guardians and that team moving forward. They need to find that face of the franchise, though. They really need to find that face of the franchise. I'm not sure who it is at this point. If you had to go out there and push it, people talk about Jose Ramirez being that guy, but he's also a guy that is on the trading block, and all the whispers in Cleveland say that he's probably not going to be there, and they think they're going to get a mint for Jose Ramirez. I'd like to think otherwise. I don't like to think. I just do think otherwise, that Jose Ramirez isn't going to bring you necessarily the haul that you think he's going to bring you. I think he's going to bring an average haul back, even though the general manager in Cleveland's doing a phenomenal job, and he didn't get much back for Lindor in terms of what they thought they were going to get back. Lindor hasn't necessarily lit the world on fire either in New York, but he could have a breakout year again and be that star player after he got paid. I just don't think that Jose Ramirez is going to get Guardians fans near as much as they think he's going to bring in. I mean, I think that's a little bit of home cooking, thinking that you've got something that everybody needs, and the reality is while he can play multiple positions and be versatile, he's still a little bit of a I don't know. I don't want to say a liability, but he's a liability. And the same thing on the Pirates. They're looking for the face of their organization. They talk about Brian Reynolds, but they're arguing over $600,000, which to you and I seems like a lot, but to billionaires and millionaires, they're stepping over dollars to get to dimes, or the Pirates. And you'd think you'd want to make a guy like Brian Reynolds very happy, being that he's the face of your franchise, being that he's your guy, and obviously you want him to succeed and make that clubhouse culture a little bit more exciting, and bring in the guys, wrap them under their wings, and fly like the pirate parrots that they are. But it seems like there's a little bit of struggle between the front office and the agency of Brian Reynolds and the Pirates. Maybe they're going to start looking to Key Brian Hayes, who probably won't open the season with the club because of injury again. That whole regime that I believe officially, now that Gregory Polanco is gone, everybody from the Pirates who was in the playoffs is now gone. Managers and staff included. I think everybody's gone. The only thing and person that remains is Bob Nutting, which, we can have a whole show about Bob Nutting, but I digress. What I do know for sure is that the power rankings for YSN came out last night, much to the promise of some and much to the frustration of others. Let's get to the power rankings as they stand right now. Here they are. This is the girls' side of things, where Austintown Fitch takes the top of the perch, followed by West Branch, South Range, Ursuline, Lakeview, Champion. Poland pulls in at number 7, Boardman in at number 8, Crestview slides in at number 9, and Edison makes their debut on the power rankings overall at number 10. So when you look at these, very interesting points to talk about. Austintown Fitch, I heard Anthony say before that Fitch is the far and away favorite on this. Now, I do believe that they were the unanimous choice at number 1, but I think by saying far and away, and it might have been tied too. I don't want to throw Anthony under the bus. But saying far and away favorite, I think, is a little bit putting the cart in front of the horse, because West Branch has been very impressive. Equally impressive is South Range, and Ursuline has been lighting up the diamond as well. The 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, is pretty doggone close, and I would make an even case for 5 and 6. Lakeview, there's a lot of people that aren't familiar with the brand of the Lakeview Bulldogs and what they're doing out there with Maggie Pavlansky and Reagan Schick and head coach Nate Schick, who has completely transformed that program at Lakeview. And then you know who Champion is. I don't have to explain who Champion is. Cheryl Weaver once again, just working her magic out there. But it's one of those things where you kind of, what have you done for me lately? When these voters, I think I haven't talked to them all, but it's interesting to see because we saw teams like East Palestine get a vote in the power rankings this week after a big win. I think it was a 21 run win or something along those lines, 20 plus run win over East earlier this week, and that's living in the minds of the voters. So that's something you got to make sure that you pay attention to. Boardman, I think on my poll, they were a little bit higher. I think a tough weekend against West Branch kind of put that in the back of the minds of the voters. But I expect them to climb those polls. Coach Moots over there, Freddie's doing a great job, and they've got some extreme talent. A young team that nobody really knows about because of where they are is Edison, and that's why we're around to shine a light on them. Edison, with that new ballpark, that new facility, they might be able to slide into a couple extra home games this year, which is, again, why turf is so exciting for these teams that get it for baseball and softball, because if one team says we can't play, the team with turf can say, hey, why don't you just slide over here? You can be the home team, whatever, and we'll just make sure that we get the game in. That's what's exciting for athletic directors, and especially when you sit there with Tom Bosek at Edison. He's going to take every advantage he can of getting some of those home games and some home cooking. Even though he might not always have his team be the home team, it's opportunities to get games in when otherwise they wouldn't. The team that I think sneaking up again on everybody is Crestview. And you look at what they're doing, an unbelievable, you look at where that program was before Greg Eskra took over. And he has his daughter, Haley, was a huge part of that program, and Greg has done a phenomenal job of not only creating a program, that is going to last the test of time. It really is, because Crestview is building from the ground up. They're building from the very young youth leagues in softball, and they are working all the way through your senior year as a varsity player. And Greg Eskra and his staff are a huge part of that, because they understand how important it is to get these young ladies involved in softball from a young age, keep them involved, be able to intermingle, the varsity athletes, the junior varsity athletes with the young ones, and have them look up to them, because someday they will be in those cleats. Someday they will represent the school over at the Crestview ball fields, and of course, someday they will be looking to raise, sectional district and regional banners of their own over for the Lady Rebels. And again, Crestview, a program that doesn't get near enough attention out of the MVAC, and they're doing big things. Exciting to see them champion another program out of the MVAC. I'm excited for that, but when you look at this list of the 10, there's a lot of people, and we're going to talk a little bit more with the boys, there's a lot of people that will argue that this list is flawed, and it certainly is. It certainly is. I'm not taking away anything from other teams that should have been on there. There's teams on the bubble. There's teams that didn't even make the cut that feel slighted. I know Hubbard was among them. I thought probably should have made the list. I haven't seen enough of them from the jump, but that's on me. That's not on them. But you look at some of the teams that they have the opportunity in the next couple weeks to face off with, and it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. I think the Poland loss had a lot to do with kind of not being able to make it. I mean, if Hubbard wins that game, we might be talking about Hubbard in the 7 slot and Poland down the slide a little bit to 9-10, or maybe even on the bubble. But you look at Lakeview, we talked about them with Nate Schick in charge, a great leader, and obviously his daughter Reagan is just a versatile athlete who is getting it done. She's been waiting for this senior year, and she's going to be someone to keep your eye on. An all-star last year for YSN, so keep your eye on Lakeview. Ursuline, we talked about them yesterday. You can't say enough about them. They're a team that people are going to have to be forced to watch, because I think after the departure of Coach Kernan, there's a lot of people that thought that was the end of the Ursuline product, and sorry about your luck, no pun intended, because the Lady Irish are here to stay. Just sneaking in right behind South Range. I think South Range and Ursuline, that's going to be another battle Obviously, they met in the regionals last year with a lot on the line. South Range came out with the victory. I think this is a two teams that are going to be next to each other. They could flip-flop depending on wins and losses throughout the season, but I think that these two teams are, again, I believe, on a crash course for each other in the later rounds of the playoffs once again. So keep your eye on that one. Again, we'll see a lot of South Range in the coming next week because we'll be taking the trip down to Myrtle Beach with the South Range teams, both baseball and softball. So you'll get your fill of South Range coverage right here on the network. West Branch and Austintown Fitch. And at the top of the polls, you look at these two teams. And again, I know I kind of poo-pooed they are Austintown Fitch being, head and shoulders above everybody. I don't like that. Not in the sense that they're not, but I think it's hard to tell. And I don't think Fitch and Branch play each other, if I'm not mistaken. This would be one of those games I would love to see. If West Branch is rained out one day and Fitch doesn't have a dancing partner, these two teams squaring up, one place or another. Would love to see this. That would be such a good game. And you want to talk about a barometer for this power rankings. That would be a dream matchup between those two. So hopefully, I don't wish rain or ill will on anybody to not get games in. But hopefully, if there is an opportunity for these two teams to meet, and one of them needs a game or both of them need a game, that they can meet up, and it would be like one of those dream sequences like in Rocky Balboa. So a lot to talk about with those, a lot to break down. The one thing I do want to just people to remember is we are not slating your teams. We are not slating. I think there's 10 weeks, in fact, of the power rankings for baseball and softball. So when you look at this, that is basically a preseason poll because nobody has more than 4 games in at this point. I don't recall. So when you look at that, there's opportunities, and with rainouts and things of that nature, there's opportunities to get back into the swing of things, to be noticed. Because the next one I'm going to show you, and here it is, the boys. This one I had a little bit of trouble with because you look from 1 to 10, and Boardman is nowhere to be seen. And Boardman has a just who's who of talent up and down their roster. And I will take as much responsibility as the next guy because this is my baby when it comes to the power rankings. But the reality is there's Boardman people that are literally steaming about this and using this as bulletin board material. Excuse me. I think that they have every right to. You look at some of these teams, I think Boardman should be in the top 5. But again, look at these teams. Who are you going to kick out? Who are you going to eject to be in that top 5? Canfield has started 3-1 on the season. They played Boardman tonight, so we're going to find out real quick where Boardman stacks up against this on this power ranking list. But Canfield lost to number 1 in Division 1, Walsh Jesuit, over the weekend. That's their only loss in a 3-1. Walsh Jesuit is the one in 3-1. And Canfield beat teams like Strongsville to start the season. They beat St. Ed's on Saturday. And they beat Oregon Clay on Friday night at Oregon Stadium. So Canfield, I think, is a firm number 1. I don't think there's many people, and I believe it was unanimous as well, both of our number 1s this week. Ursuline, I like a lot. In years past, in the last, 4 or 5 years, we saw Ursuline play a nightmare of a schedule. I mean, it was playing everybody who possibly could have wanted to play Ursuline, whatever division it was. Ursuline was throwing down. I'm not saying that their schedule isn't like that this year. I just don't think it's as competitive as it has been in years past. And that doesn't mean that the 3-0 Ursuline is just a facade, because I don't think that either. I think Ursuline has an opportunity to get better and better and better and better because of the teams that's on their schedule. I just hope that it doesn't cost them during playoff time. I think that Canfield has a amazingly challenging schedule that they play up, I believe, almost every game that isn't a conference game. Warren JFK, another that plays up. I mean, tonight they're playing Akron-Hoban. You have the state champion Akron-Hoban baseball club and Warren JFK's state champion baseball club going 1-on-1 for the great supremacy of the entire stickball federation here in the great Buckeye State. I don't know. I haven't examined Ursuline's schedule deep enough. I know that who they play this week. Canton Central Catholic is going to be a nice game. I think that's tonight, or is that St. V's? Let me take a look real quick. I think it's St. V's tonight. So that'll be a nice measuring stick game for them. It's St. V's tonight on Scene 2 at 5 p.m. I think Canton Central Catholic is on there. So I think that's one of those ones that is going to be a measuring stick. St. V's is probably going to be a nice game for Ursuline. You're gonna see what they're all about. But again, Canfield JFK, I would argue, have some of the toughest schedules in all of the YSN family. But I would argue that nobody's got tougher schedules than JFK. JFK is playing up every single game, seemingly. Just constantly playing up. Saw them get a big win over Garfield over the weekend. They're playing Howland tomorrow, I believe. So you look at that and you wonder why 11 guys last year were able to win a state title. That's why. They're playing teams constantly that are a little bit stronger than them, and then you get into the D4 playoffs, and they just absolutely steamrolled through because they've already played that competition. Now you look at number 4, Salem. Now, Salem's a team I haven't figured out yet. You got Carson Rhodes. You got some talent on that team across the board. You got Beck behind the dish, who is one of the strongest defensive catchers in the entire YSN family. But then you wonder, with this schedule that they play, what is it going to detail for them? Already 1-1 on the season for the Quakers. A tough loss to Canton South in the opener, but they bounced right back with a one-hitter with Carson Rhodes. Who is Salem going to be this year? And I don't feel bad saying that, and I'm not criticizing. I just want to know, who are they going to be this year? I know that they lost a lot of that leadership when Lane Rhodes walked away. Who's going to step up and be the big dog? Who's going to be the head Quaker this year? Those two guys are going to need role players. Salem was full of role players last year, and days that Lane, and he'll tell you that, days that Lane did not have his game or his A game, there were other guys that stepped up. Brock Young was a big piece of that puzzle. I think he'll be again. But again, Salem needs to get hot, and they need to get hot quick in order to get them back to where they were, especially with the schedule that they're playing this season. Garfield finds itself in the 6th slot. I still think that there's a lot of talent in that Garfield team. A no-hitter the first game through was impressive, but they're going to have to tread water here for a little bit in the MVAC. This is their first time through the conference, so it's going to be interesting to see where they end up when it's all said and done. Austintown Fitch, again, I think should be a little bit higher. I don't know where. I think I voted them at number 4, if I'm not mistaken. You look at what Joe Roth did with 15 Ks and a dinger the other day. Fitch is a very, very talented team. And you talk about role players. They remind me of the 2004 Boston Red Sox. The Cowboy Up Red Sox, because seemingly it's somebody different on any given night. Jay Coral has turned into a big 1-2 punch for Austintown Fitch with Joe Roth. When you think about what you need in the playoffs in the OHSAA, you need 2 pitchers. You need one to get you into the championship game and one to win it. South Range did it years ago, and now Austintown Fitch is set up in that same kind of 1-2 punch, but they're also going to need some guys out of the bullpen. They're going to need some offense to help them ride through, and they surely, where they're at in the division, they got their hands full, and they know that. But I'll tell you what, that team's going to have a lot of fun this year, and they're going to win a lot of games doing it. Springfield is a team that a lot of people have a whole lot of faith in. It was documented earlier that Mooney beat Springfield, and Mooney's not on the list, but Springfield is. I think that in the MVAC, Springfield could shake things up. I think that they have a lot riding on their pitching staff this year. If their pitching's there, they're going to be successful. And if it's not, it's going to be a tough year for the Tigers. And you look at what they have a lot of arms, but keeping those arms healthy, just like every other team on this list, is going to be the case in point. Can the Tigers continue to make deep runs in all of their sports? Can they stay healthy? And at the end of the day, are they going to be able to win those 50-50 games with teams like Champion, like Garfield, and the other MVAC teams that they're going to have to face? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a ton of intrigue in that MVAC, and I can't wait to watch it. A team that I'm really, really excited to watch is Columbiana. They slide in here at number 9. Columbiana has had, and if you know, or if you don't, Columbiana has been a long-standing baseball powerhouse here in Northeast Ohio. There's a couple years that they might not have the power punch that they do. They've got Chase Franken playing at YSU, which was really their first big D1 player in a while to get there. Back to the days of Dean Stokes and Nate Shaw and Brett Siebert. And it's a who's who. I mean, Scott Knox coached that team. Bruce Wolf coached that team. Ortiz was a great catcher behind the plate. The baseball IQ in Columbiana has always been, and I think will always be, just a little bit higher than the others in the area, because there's an expectation when you play at Firestone Park. There's an expectation of who you're going to play and knowing your opponent as well as you know yourself. And Ryan Wolf, being the great X's and O's guy, but great numbers guy, he rolls the dice too, which I love. Like, even if the numbers aren't in his favor, Ryan rolls the dice enough to give his teams chances to win where other coaches, other managers might not. It's not the belief necessarily that he has in his kids, but sometimes you have to believe in your students before your students can believe in themselves. And Ryan, being a teacher, a coach, and honestly one of the smartest people that I've ever come across in sports, knows the right combination. He's always turning that safe with his ear to it and understanding how many more numbers he needs to crack the code. And he's doing it again. A big win, a statement signature win on the early going against a very good Howland team, puts Columbiana in our 9 spot. And in our 10 spot, let's go back to the graphic, it's Champion. Champion is, to me, they should be higher. And I feel like I could say that about everybody, and everybody say, oh, DJ's going to sit there and pat everybody on the back because he's a positive person. Champion should be higher for a multitude of reasons. They have athletes. They have great coaching and Coach Barker. He's a great fit for this program. Champion should be higher for several different reasons. But their offense is astounding, like just really, really good. And they've just got some dudes. To use some baseball terminology, Champion has some dudes. And I think that as the season progresses, you're going to see that Golden Sea climb higher and higher and higher and be there on a regular basis. I think debuting at number 10, I don't want to say it's a disservice to the Golden Flashes, but I think this lights a little bit of a fire under them. So maybe we'll see them a little bit higher in some of these games. That's the thing. Like I said, in a pre-season poll, basically like this is, I mean, some of these games, some of these teams only have a couple of games in. It's hard to assess 1 through 10, let alone 1 through 53. Mohawk is a great team over in Pennsylvania. The problem is going to be, and they got some votes, problem's going to be, who do you stack them up against, and how do you tell if they're better? Because a lot of these times, they'll never play each other. Mohawk won't play an Ohio team, and vice versa. Ohio won't play, a Mohawk or a Pennsylvania team. So it's a challenge. This is not meant to really paint any team or multiple teams in a bad light and say you're not that good. What we're doing is we're trying to help give some motivation, and you want a light shined on your sport and your team, fit in the top 10. And if you don't believe that you're being serviced correctly, if you feel like you're in the top 10, tell us why. That's the beautiful thing about these power rankings, is we want to hear from you why you think you should be in the top 10, but you better bring it. You better bring it, because we got 10 people that are ready and just checking off the box. This is what this team did. This is what this team did. This is what this team did. East Liverpool is another team that I think really should have got a lot more credit, but people look at that 18-0 game to start the season, and I think they hold a grudge on that, even though I believe East Liverpool is now 3-1, including a game that they bounced back on a walk-off the next day against Edison. A couple big wins over Southern, and now all of a sudden, East Liverpool is 3-1 and has the same record as Canfield. Different teams, but at the same time, how can you take anything away from East Liverpool after what they did? But, there's a lot that goes into the voting system that we have. There's a lot of people that vote a whole different ways. I just vote, have you beat the teams that they put in front of you? If you lost, who did you lose to? And, Walsh Jesuit's the number one team in the state, I think. I really do. Except for, I would argue, on any given day, Canfield could beat Walsh Jesuit. Should have. Let's put it this way. Canfield should have beaten Walsh Jesuit on Saturday. Again, yesterday I recapped it for you. It was a 2-run game going into the fifth. I think there was one down, and then Walsh Jesuit just made a push. That's what good teams do. They make a push, and Canfield just could not bust down the door on the offense. Give it a different day. Maybe it's 80 degrees. Maybe it's, give us 60 degrees, and maybe that game's a little bit different. But other side of the card, maybe that game's a little bit different for Walsh too. So you got to win those ones, and obviously that's a tough one to lose, because that would have sent shockwaves all over the Buckeye State if Canfield were able to pull that win out. But they've got a chance tonight to do to really showcase their talent, and I can't wait to see it. Boardman and Canfield, I'll have that one. Let's get to the list of games here before we take a break, and then we get to the really good stuff, the NIL stuff, and the 14 pieces that were talked about at the OHSA meetings here today. All right, for baseball, I know we have 16 games for you here. Baseball at 6:05, Richie Giuliano. I'm going to preface this one and say that I will have a watchful eye on this game. This one means so much to me because you look at Youngstown State University traveling to Ohio State, the Ohio State University, and you've got two of the best kids you could ever imagine. Two kids that have been a showcase product for YSN for the last 4 or 5 years. You've got Lane Rhodes from Youngstown State getting the start for the Penguins, and you've got Jake Gehring getting the start for the Ohio State University Buckeyes. You talk about the amount of times that I've broken bread with these kids, talked to these kids. I shouldn't say kids; they're grown-ass men now. But you look at, you couldn't ask for two better families. You couldn't ask for two better kids. We have a ton of great families across the area, but these two are just products of hard work, dedication, never giving up, never surrendering, always having a positive mindset. Jake had his surgery on his arm. He's back. He's going to showcase it here today. And then you look at Lane. Lane has been the consummate underdog through everything. A kid that probably should have gotten a ton of looks from a recruitment standpoint in a world where it was tough to be seen, from a recruitment standpoint because of COVID. Teams are still kind of pinned to these upperclassmen and these freshmen that they brought in that didn't get time in 2020. Lane has taken the opportunity to play for Youngstown State, where someone who wanted him, someone who saw something in Lane Rhodes. And if you know Lane, you know what I'm going to say. He's going to take that baseball and stick it where the sun don't shine on a lot of these teams. Lane has an approach unlike any other. Jake is a calm, cool, collected competitor. Lane is loud, excitable. He's everything you'd want in a pitcher, everything you'd think in a pitcher in a movie. Can't wait to see this. Can't wait to watch it. Can't wait to listen to it with Richie Giuliano on the call. 6:05 right here on YSN. Your home for Youngstown State baseball here is YSN. Almost said basketball. That could have been bad. Baseball in high school level, we have Akron St. Vincent St. Mary at Ursuline, which is at Scene Park on Scene 2. Eric Hughes will have the call for that. Then you've got Hoban, JFK, Ty Bartell always gets those great games, and he's got the call from JFK tonight. That one starts at 5 p.m. Battle of State Champions, hashing it out. I've got Canfield at Boardman. Can't wait to see this one, to see what Boardman's all about. Hopefully they don't just beat the hell out of me for these power rankings, but hopefully it motivates them against a team like Canfield, who should and will constantly have a target on their chest and back all season long, being all the hype that PBR puts around them, that YSN puts around them, and everybody is on the Canfield train. Boardman, you shouldn't need anything else but that for bulletin board material. Was it Canton Central Catholic? I think so. Against Louisville, we'll have that one as well. The Leopards in action. That's another team that I think is going to be very good this year, so keep a lookout for them. LeBray at Garfield. Noah Ricks is going to have that one for you. Two good teams. Don't be surprised. I want to see if Caden Spade starts that one because of it's a conference game at home. Liberty at Brookfield. Matt Morrison going to have that for you. Poland at Struthers. Noah Doty on scene 3. We'll have a little bit of NE8 action, followed by Salem at Marlington. Derek Rhodes, the Rhodes daddy, is going to have it for you. Then you've got Alec Caberna with Crestview and Camel on scene 1. So the Casual Sports Podcast boys are going to be all over the network tonight as well. Eric Hughes doubling down. He's got McDonald at Jackson Milton on scene 2. And then you've got Gerard at Lakeview. Sam's taking care of that for us as well. Let's head down to softball. We've got 3 games for you. Maslin Perry at Cardinal Mooney at the Field of Dreams. Anthony Hartwig will have you covered. Bob Zanny and the Struthers staff have you covered for Poland at Struthers and Warren JFK at Rootstown. Dom O'Brien will be covering that one for you. 16 games on the network, all absolutely free to you. Hope you are able to enjoy it in some capacity. We're going to take a break. Let's check the comments real quick, see what we have here. Here we go. Yep, doubleheader on seed 1 should be great. Yes, sir. It'll be good. Casual Sports Report and Sports Podcast right here on YSN from 2 to 3 here on the network. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a lot to talk about with the OHSA coming out with 14 pieces of information that you probably don't know about and probably haven't heard about unless you get the emails from Tim Street. All that and more coming up on the YSN Power Hour right after this.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Working with your family can be stressful at times. But because they're family, you know that you're going to get a loving, honest answer, even when things don't make sense, to any problem. Dealing with Medicare can be confusing and overwhelming. That's why here at Myers Family Insurance, we do our best to give you honest and caring answers to all of your questions. Family, like Medicare, isn't always perfect, but when you put others first, the results can be amazing.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance.
It's storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-res futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Notice we'll have scattered showers on Thursday.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
Hey, welcome back to the YSN Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with you here. And let's check the comment section one more time and see what we have here. Oh, we can buy followers. Interesting. I don't need them. We got the greatest followers in the world right here on your sports network. All right, so 251. I stand corrected. 251. I got an email from Tim Street, who is one of the greatest PR people ever. And has done a great job with the OHSAA. One of my favorite people to talk to. Hopefully we can get him on the show at some point, especially after this. This is going to be super interesting. He is the official Director of Media Relations for the OHSAA. So the title is OHSAA Member Schools to Vote on 14 Referendum Items. So apparently the vote is still to be happening. And the subtitle is the NIL, Transfer Modifications, and Participation Options for Non-Enrolled Students Highlight Referendum Slate. So out of Columbus, it says member schools of the Ohio High School Athletic Association will vote on 14 potential changes for the OHSAA Constitution and bylaws during the annual referendum voting period May 1 through 16. The OHSAA Board of Directors approved the 13 bylaw issues and one Constitution issue to go to a membership for a vote. Now, remember, right now, the OHSAA, you have to pay to be part of the association, to be a member. Let's see. Members of the media are also welcome to attend. High school principals will vote electronically on the 14 proposals beginning May 1st and ending at 4 p.m. Monday, May 16th. If approved, all items become effective August 1st, 2022. Unless otherwise noted, a simple majority is needed to pass an item. So here's where it becomes interesting to me. Principals, I don't know. I think it's principals, the majority of them. Administration, let's just put it that way. Administration has the chance to vote on these particular sets of referendum items. Stay tuned. Okay. 2 items of note. I'm going to read this in its entirety. I hope you don't mind. Issue 12B is a name, image, and likeness proposal that mirrors changes made at the collegiate level in the last year. This proposed addition would now allow student athletes to sign endorsement agreements so long as their teams, schools, and or the OHSAA logo are not used, and provided these are no endorsements that deal with companies that do not support the mission of education-based athletics such as casinos, gambling, alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. In addition, Issue 4B would permit a student that is enrolled at a member public high school that does not sponsor a team sport in which the student desires to participate to petition to play that sport at a public school located in a bordering public school district pursuant to the bordering district's duly adopted Board of Education resolution. So if one team or one school does not have rugby or lacrosse or something like that, or esports, potentially a kid from, I'm giving examples here, a student athlete from Columbiana could go to, I want to say Crestview, and become an esport athlete or play lacrosse or whatever that sport is, and vice versa, given Board of Education approval. Okay, now it gets interesting. So I'm just going to read through these real quick, the different ones, and there's some that are a little bit more exciting than others, but hear me out on this. You're going to want to listen to the NIL one. Issue 1C, transfer of schools from one athletic district to another. This proposed modification of Constitution Article 573, in addition to Article 6110, would clarify procedures and factors used for evaluating a request for a school change in the OHSAA athletic districts. The proposed amendment would, number one, restrict requests to those that can, quote, meet objective published criteria. Number two, restrict how frequent each change may occur. Number three, remove the final decision-making authority from the Board of Directors, which is composed of reps from the impacted districts, and instead places the decision-making authority on the Executive Director. And number four, allow any denied transfer request to be heard by the OHSAA appeals panel. If passed, it'll be effective May 16th, 2022. Interesting. Issue 1B, definition of interscholastic contest. This proposed modification would clean up the definition of interscholastic contest by providing clarity and many more detail on the definition. Okay. There's also issue 2B, which is recognized in emerging sports, which is interesting because they're talking about, recognizing some of the sports that are coming up that are covered under the OHSAA banner, essentially looking to add sports to the OHSAA. Issue 3B, student manager exception. Love this one. Listen up. Turn the ears up. This proposal would enable schools to reward and or recognize a student manager or a student with an intellectual or physical disability for his or her special contributions to the team and allow them to play in a game without requiring the school to verify certain aspects of eligibility. The participation of such student would only be permitted one time per sports season, and the opposing coach and officials would have to be made aware of the student's participation before the student enters the contest. This concept is already captured in Bylaw 222, so if passed, the bylaw would also be modified and remove the requirement for the student to meet the standard of the OHSAA scholarship bylaw. Love this on so many levels. So many levels, because when you look at this, students with disabilities, students, and not just physical, but emotional, mental disabilities, there's nothing that warms my heart more, and you guys know how I feel about those that are overcoming disabilities and working through life with disabilities. Nothing warms my heart more than giving a chance to someone who typically wouldn't. Someone who typically would not be given a chance to do the great things that we do in sports every single day. We see it all the time. It makes you feel good. It warms your heart. As good as it makes us feel by watching it, imagine being the one that is participating in it. One of the ones that comes to my mind is when a young man is shooting a free throw, and we just had it on our social media actually not too long ago. We had the one I'll tell you one and I'll tell you the other. The one man was shooting a free throw and they just kept rebounding and rebounding and rebounding until the young man made the bucket, and teams from both teams, or I should say players from both teams, celebrated that as if it was the game winner, walk it off, and that gives hope. That gives opportunity. It gives so much great feeling and there's so many lessons learned in that moment from every different aspect of participation. OHSAA, you nailed it. You nailed this one. I know you get a lot of crap from people, and you're probably going to get some in a minute here from one side or the other. But I am thrilled that you're making this a bylaw. You're adding this into it. You're giving more kids the opportunity to participate in sports, being a student manager, and then being able to play that one game. I love this. Absolutely love it. And you nailed it. You did it right. And hopefully tell your representative, principal, superintendent, your administrator who votes on this next month, that's the one. If nothing else passes, this should pass. This should pass 100%. This should be a unanimous 100% vote. Sorry, getting choked up. Students attending public school playing sports at a neighboring district school. Proposed new exemption would permit a student enrolled at a member public high school that does not have a sponsor, or that does not sponsor a team sport in which a student desires to participate in, to petition to play that sport in a public school located in a bordering school district, pursuant to the bordering district's duly adopted Board of Education resolution. Reciprocal language has been made and developed for students in multiple high school districts from the OHSAA. They just need to sign a form basically and get that started. I like this too. Although I do think that it's going to be challenging. There are some downsides to this, certainly. But I think it's going to be challenging for School A to maintain that youngster if they go and get new friends and teammates and things of that nature. I think that's going to open up Pandora's box a little bit more. I like it because I think that every kid should have every opportunity to play every sport if they feel like it. But I can see how this can be crafted into a bad situation real quick. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to skip down. They have one about 18-year-old provision in residency bylaw. Basically, if you're 18, you don't need your parents' permission anymore to do, what is it, to change custody exemption under the transfer bylaw. So you don't need your parents' permission to transfer anymore. You can just do it yourself if you still have eligibility. Shifting period of ineligibility. They're looking to give the executive director's office the authority to adjust the period when a student would fulfill the regular season transfer consequence if they are unable to compete during all or part of the first 50% of the season due to extenuating circumstances through no fault of the student athlete. This would not allow for the transfer consequence to be waived, nor would it allow for students to regain eligibility for the OHSA tournament. So what is it there for? I'll have to read up on that one a little bit deeper. Issue 7B is a bona fide move changes / clarifications. Issue 8B, where are we at on time? Well, we got to wrap it up. 8B is remove current transfer exemption 5 for the School of the Deaf and the Blind. 9B is return to non-public system of education. Issue 10B is adult bad behavior exception. Let's hear this one. The proposal to add this exception would provide a pathway for a student who may have been subject to inappropriate adult behavior to transfer schools and not be subject to a period of ineligibility so long as the certain criteria is met. The proposed exception has no application for a student / family displeased with the former coach's training tactics / style. So you can't just transfer based on your coach not playing you or the style of coaching. But I guess you can transfer based on if, I don't know, something's inappropriate, I guess. 11B is modifications to amateur bylaw. That's not a whole lot. 12B. 12B. New amateurism bylaw. Adding the name, image, and likeness regulations. This proposed addition would now allow student athletes to sign endorsement agreements so long as their teams, schools, and or the OHSA are not being represented within these endorsements and provided that they are no endorsements with companies that do not support the mission of education-based athletics such as casinos, gambling, alcohol, drugs, tobacco. If passed, it will be effective May 16th, 2022. So a few weeks ago, there was a local media representative that went on and trashed this. Excuse me. Trashed the idea that students and student athletes should not get paid based on their athletic prowess and how good they are at sports. Yeah. So if you are a parent or a coach or a student athlete, and you have been a parent or a coach or a student athlete, or in contact with a parent or a coach or a student athlete in the last, 20 years, and you can roll it back even further than that. Let's just take that for example. You understand, same as college, maybe more sometimes, how hard and how much a family puts into student athletics, practices, cleats, you name it, basketballs, time, resources, everything you can imagine. So a non-student athlete, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, a non-student athlete has more time on their hands. Just by the fact of, and they might do other extracurriculars. Let's not count that out. So maybe they play an instrument in the band. Maybe they play, maybe they have a job. Maybe they have the. What I'm trying to get at is when you have 2 to 3 hour practices at night, your coach expects you to get in the weight room in the morning, things that the college atmosphere and the expectation somehow has funneled its way right down into high school. To the point where we're talking about pay-to-play opportunities. It's seemingly and I know this is not the fault because everybody's pinching pennies here in school districts, but if you're going to sit there and have kids pay to play your sports, then you have to afford them the opportunity to pay for it in some way or another. Some of them do not have parents at home. Some of them do not have supportive parents at home. Some of them are lucky to get to practice on time. Some of them are lucky to be at practice or the games at all. And I'm not saying that these kids aren't even the ones that are riding the bench. Some of these kids are your starters. Some of these kids are your star players that cannot get out of their home because of a problem at home. So we're expecting them to pay hundreds of dollars, support themselves by having cleats, by having their own baseball bat, by having their own catcher's gear, by having this, that, the other. Time out. I don't know. Most places, they allow you what is called an allowance, right? So if you have to get a uniform for work, there's a uniform allowance that they build into your paycheck. And you go and you get your black shoes or you get your black polo or whatever it may be, right? The majority of places, like especially in restaurants, you have to wear black. Point being that if you expect these kids to pay to play and you're not giving them the opportunity, if you're going to keep them for 3 hours at night and an hour in the morning or an hour and a half in the morning, and that's travel time and things of that nature, you have to afford them the opportunity to go create enough revenue to play your sport. The NIL is fair in every sense. Every sense. I don't care if there's some jock versus nerd mentality that the nerd feels like the jock is going to get more opportunities and there's going to be that, like, it's not going to change anything. One student has an opportunity here and the other student has an opportunity here. If you want those opportunities to become an athlete, then you've got to work like this student. And granted, no single student is going to be equal to another. I'm all for the NIL. I was all for it in college. I'm all for it in high school because it also does a couple other things. It gets kids the opportunity to learn business and handle their business from a younger age. Because if you go out and you pop off on social media, you're not going to get an NIL. In fact, they'll push you so far away that you've got no chance. And maybe that takes you away from being an athlete, but maybe it takes you away from being an a-hole online. Maybe it goes reverse. You think that people are going to bully others, like these kids that are athletes are going to bully the other kids because they have a little bit of money. I think it's going to do the reverse. I think the kids will be less apt to bully other kids because they are now representative not only of their own brand, but they are representative of someone else's. The NIL makes you behave. And the only way seemingly our society knows how to anymore, it's you are going to behave or we will not pay you. You will not have a revenue stream. You will not get the attention. You will not get the love and the desire and the affection that you're looking in a perfect world because you're being an a-hole in a real world. You're being a jerk. The NIL, to me, presents opportunity for coaches to help these kids understand quickly that life isn't fair. And if you want something, you're going to have to work for it. Whether it's on the field, on the court, in the classroom, because I got to believe if we were handing out NILs, and we could, The kid has to meet a certain grade point average, has to meet certain criteria. It's not a who's who. It's not a this name over this name. It's a, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? It's an X's and O's game, because when you put your brand on somebody, they better not be crapping on it, for lack of better words. The NIL, Ohio, is getting ahead of the game. I called this months ago. Go back and watch Power Hours when the NIL hit college, and you'll see me saying it's coming to high school. And a bunch of naysayers, no, it'll never do that. How are you going to do that? Knocking on your door. It's knocking on your door. There's two ways to look at this. Two distinctive ways to look at the NIL in high school. It can be a tool, or it can make you look like a tool, the same way social media is. It's not going to be fair when esports comes along and is in every school that these kids can be sponsored, and the kid that's shooting a basketball or hitting a baseball or hitting a volleyball is not going to be able to make money based on their abilities. You wouldn't tell somebody that's extremely good at being a cashier and saves time and resources for your store, if you owned a grocery store, you wouldn't tell them that they can't get paid because they're good at the craft. Why would you tell someone who has worked extremely hard, maybe it's their way out of a bad situation, why would you tell them that they cannot get paid based on their talent, based on their hard work and their dedication to their craft? It's not fair. Student athletes have been quieted, and really, they've been quiet for far too long. Think about a world without student athletes. Go back to 2020. Think about the first question that people asked. Schools would be in big trouble if there was no sports, because there's very little revenue that creates as much as sports do. They're not asking the schools, and in fact, they're telling schools, or telling the athletes, that schools can't be represented on your endorsements. Let the kids go and represent themselves. Some of them will fall, and some of them will succeed. And there's going to be 80% of the people in the middle that do it just to get by and to buy a new pair of shoes or buy a new Xbox or whatever it may be. But the reality is, you're teaching them life, you're teaching them business, and you're teaching them how to get better, how to represent themselves. Because I promise you that nobody's going to dump money into a young man or woman that is going to represent themselves like a heathen. It's just not going to happen. This is something to be proud of if you're a parent. This is something to be proud of if you're an administrator, that your kids can raise X amount of dollars on their own merit, based on their own talents. The same way that the college and the NCAA have adopted this rule, I encourage high schools to take a long look at it as well. Because it's an opportunity for student athletes that is unlike anything we've ever seen before. And as we continue to change the culture on what it's like to be a student athlete, understand that if I were an 18-year-old or 17-year-old and I'm playing sports at this point, and you shut this down, because your vote's going to be public, and I'm not, trust me, this is not a threat. If I was a 17 or an 18-year-old in that standpoint, I would have a lot of questions for where money goes elsewhere in a district. That's just natural. It's inquisitive nature. Schools need to do this. Ohio needs to do this. The whole country needs to do this, and watch athletics continue to grow leaps and bounds year after year after year. It has nothing to do with bullying or putting advantage. Like, I heard that athletes have an advantage over somebody else. No. Because if you're not an athlete, you have time and resources to go be a tutor. Student athletes don't have that opportunity. They're in school and then they go to practice or they go to a game. How is that fair to them? Let them go make some money, do some things. That's all I got for you today. That's again, lots of stuff to talk about. We're going to unpack that over the next couple of days, I'm sure. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you feel about anybody from. It's got to be high school, right? So it's 13 to 18 getting a name, image, and likeness deal in their young sports career. I want to hear from you. That's going to do it for our show today. I know we missed the Joe Dickey Electric. What's your spark? That was my spark really at the end. So take that for what it's worth. Shout out to our friends over at Joe Dickey Electric in North Lima. Visit them on at DickeyElectric.com. I got to bolt to Boardman. I'll see y'all later here on YSN.